Water's pretty awesome. Why do I say that? Because it has to do with today's episode. Come on. You had to have known that. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Now, we call it the podcast right now because we're shifting our name from the Thought Leader Podcast to something else. We're actually voting on it internally as a team right now, so I'm not going to tell you what's in the lead. I think you're going to like it, though. Either way, in this podcast, we talk to the leading voices, our clients at Speaker Mastermind in the realms of health, wealth, and relationships. And our hopes is to meet aspiring leading voices, people that have a message in their heart. They have a mastery in their mind. You want to share it to the world. But we're on that cusp of comfort and uncomfort. We want to understand these people's stories, where they began, what they've learned, why they decided to get uncomfortable, in hopes of aspiring you to be a future leading voice in your trade and in your arena. Today, we're talking with Eliza Herald. A little bit about Eliza. We're talking in the realm of water restoration to help climate change and how we should start to view water. Eliza's connection to water was born from growing up amidst the abundant snows of the high Sierra Mountains. Her journey is guided by one of the sacred, pure water hearts of the world. She grown up in Lake Tahoe. The crystalline clarity instills a deep remembrance of the human relationship to what she calls the water wisdom within. She had an eye-to-eye encounter with a mama whale that gave her a mission to awaken the compassionate heart of humanity, cherishing water as if our life depended on it, and to live as the light within the water because we are the watershed. I had to look up what a watershed was before this, and it's kind of a network that takes water and moves it into systems of into rivers, and from rivers to lakes, and lakes to rivers, and oceans to rivers, and kind of this valley system. But one of the things Eliza talks about is we are part of that. We are mostly water, and it's not us and water, it's we are one. And being able to view it as such gives us a different lens of looking at the importance of water. So we talk about how she got into this journey, and it is out there, right? She says she's got eye rolls before, and she's decided to stay uncomfortable through the process because she truly believes in her message. She talks about there being a difference between being a way finder and a way shower, not just being a thought leader, but then to speak on it, right? How to look at water not as a resource of ours, but as a source of which we come from, and how we can start to get involved in our community to help the water systems and help restore the watershed, because we are the watershed. But before we jump into it today, I got to do a quick ad read. If you like this stuff, drop a like, please. Drop a comment. Also, drop a comment. Tell us what you don't like, because we could always get better. And I think we're building this together, not just me, not just our guests, but also you, the viewer. Where can we get better? Drop it below. But in case you were wondering, this podcast is brought to you by Speaker Mastermind. Over the last 8 years, this company has made it a mission to help its coaching and consulting clients get their authentic message out to the world in hopes of reaching their own desired audience through the power of speaking and business building. Eliza on the podcast, she's actually speaking on a TEDx talk. She's in her second round interview with TEDx Salt Lake, so send her some good vibes. Speaker Mastermind has over 650 clients that have landed TEDx talks, hundreds more speaking on virtual and physical stages around the world. They have perfected the art of delivering a top-tier message. They also offer programs to build and scale your own high-ticket program and authentically market and sell it to your target audience and build a sustainably scaled business. So if you have a message in your heart, if you have a mastery in your mind, and you need some help, you need some frameworks, you need some structure, there are links below where you can watch free webinars, check out resources, this being one of them. Check them out. It's pretty awesome. We're pretty awesome. I'm pretty awesome. And so is Eliza. So let's get over to our conversation today. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Dylan Barr, and today is episode 20 of the podcast, where we talk to leaders in the space of health, wealth, and relationships, help their message reach you, help their story reach you. Today, we're going to be speaking in the realm of relationships, not only with each other, but also to a big source out there in the world. So if you enjoy a nice tall glass of water, right? If you enjoy swimming in a great lake or a great ocean, if your body is made out of 50 to 60% water, you're going to enjoy today's episode because we're going to be talking about the power of water with Eliza Herald. Eliza, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dylan.
It's going to be fun. We have some congruences, both being in Africa for a while. We're going to talk about water restoration, but you're one of our biggest fans. I really do appreciate it, and one of our coolest clients. Eliza just got to the second round of TEDx Salt Lake, so make sure you're clapping by yourself to Eliza as you're listening to this.
I'm
Eliza,
wiggling.
you know how we start these interviews. It typically starts with what does being a thought leader mean to you? But lately we've shifted it because you're going a step further than just having a thought and being a leader in the thought space. You're speaking on it on this podcast, on the TEDx stage. So I like to call it a leading voice. So
I love that.
what does being a leading voice in the arena mean to you?
We all have a voice.
Hmm.
And I struggled to find my voice. I was pathologically shy as a child and was a very committed follower.
Hmm.
And got out into the world, was driven to leave early, went traveling at 17 and traveled for quite a while. At 19 years old, I had a massive dream. And the essence of the dream was that I was told, you are the first molecule of the tidal wave awakening the heart of humanity. Where you go, so too the rest shall follow.
My gosh.
And now, like, what?
Yeah.
19 years old, I had
Yeah.
absolutely no clue what to do with that.
Wow. And you said growing up as more of a follower, more as less of a voice.
Oh,
Do you feel like
completely. Yeah.
this is what kicked it off for you?
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. That really set me on my journey to learn what that meant.
And was it just because the word you heard was tidal wave, or was the affinity to water already
It was a
there for you?
huge wave
Yeah.
that I was. And the idea is that every wave has its leading edge. And that there was a row, it wasn't just me, it was a row of us that were this leading edge of the tidal wave awakening the heart of humanity. And the idea is that behind us, the mass of humanity will follow. It's like what path we lead, humanity now can follow because we're setting the, like one drop of water, right? The whole flow comes after it. That was the feeling and image.
In your journey, have you met anyone else that's on that leading row?
Yeah. And more all the time. We're finding each other, which is really amazing.
And do each of them kind of have their own message, right?
They
Is
all
all of it?
carry their own piece. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, it was more this dream that says you're at the edge of this tidal wave, the first molecule to get it going.
Yeah.
And that's just changing the consciousness of humanity. It
Yeah.
did not have to be with water specifically, because that does feel like your message and your mastery. You've done water restoration projects around the world. How did water come into this? Because you're at the forefront, and that's your energy that's going, right? But then you
So
have
between 19, however old I was at 19, and 1992, I had 3 kids. I was in a relationship with their dad, and that fell apart. Like a whole lot of life, was single mom of 3 kids, and I was a landscaper in the mountains in the high Sierra. I grew up as a skier, and been skiing for as long as I could walk. So that was part of it. Is it water? My earliest memories is finding delight in water. Like in terms of my very core memory, it was the delight of splashing in water. And growing up as a skier, you have a relationship, you have to, and talk about discomfort zone. It's
Yeah.
like you're on the mountain, you have to stretch yourself
That
and you're committed.
we just went to a company offsite in Park City where we all got to ski, and I skied for about 7 years when I lived in Colorado, backcountry skiing, all the
Yeah.
mountains out there, and I went back, and that is so true because some people, like, they resist the mountain, and then it's an
Yeah.
uncomfortable journey the entire way down.
Right.
I mean, and you're talking to someone that played hockey growing up, still do, that's
Yep.
frozen water.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna ask you a deeper question here, but it's been a fun question. For you, favorite form of water? Now, this can be
Mm.
obvious. It's not just solid, liquid, or gas. Like, when I say favorite form, ocean, lake, raindrop, waterfall, icicle, like, what's the favorite form of water for you?
See, that's the thing is that uh, that's, that's part of the story is that water is
Oh,
water.
mm,
It's all water. And so you to have a favorite form, to love water, you're loving all of water.
mm. Yes.
And I love all of water. I mean, ocean.
Yeah.
I'm not as comfortable in the ocean as I am on snow,
Yeah.
um, but I love watching the ocean water. I
Mm,
love mist. I love drips coming into a spring.
mm.
Rain. I get out there and I'll dance in the rain. It's
Yeah.
like people are complaining that it's raining. I say, "You kidding me? Stop complaining."
So for you, and this is the deeper question I wanna ask for you, Eliza, is what does water symbolize for you?
So there's one thing that I want to say in terms of your last question, which
Mhm.
I feel is important, is in my journey, I've found that being a leading voice is to be not just a wayfinder, but a way shower.
Hmm.
And part of that way shower for me is to show people how to flip the mirror. And what I mean by that is that question that you just asked. I was so excited you asked it because it is it's the question I get a lot, and the most common response when I speak to people about the wisdom of water, they say, "Ah, water's such a beautiful metaphor." Right? And if we understand a metaphor, it's representing something else.
Hmm.
Water is water.
Hmm.
Over 50% of the water on Earth is older than the sun. Our planets are formed in a sort of plasmic nebula, and water's in there.
Hmm.
And so water is actually forming our sun and forming our planets. And they're finding water with the James Webb telescope. They're finding water everywhere back in the Big Bang. I mean, they're able to look so far back that there's massive amounts of water when they're looking as far back as they can see. And so to me, if water came first and will remain after this body's gone, and there's only one water on earth, then what if, this is always my question. My dad called me the what if kid instead of why. Why was never
Mhm.
my question. It was always what if. And what if we are in fact a metaphor for water? Like if we have consciousness and water, we've born and nurtured in water, then we are the water expressing itself as life. And so if we have consciousness, we're the consciousness of water looking through our eyes. And so that's what I talk about flipping the mirror is we talk about water as a resource. It's like water source.
Hmm.
And that's at the very heart of my message is flipping our perspective to recognize that we need to cherish water as if it is the source of all life because it is. And yet we don't treat it that way.
Hmm.
We treat
Yes.
it as something to exploit and extract and commodify and have rights to and right all this that we put on the natural world and even nature. We talk about nature and reconnecting with nature, but nature is the nature of water.
Hmm.
Without liquid water in our sweet spot to the sun, we would be either gaseous Venus or arid Mars. Like we're in that perfect spot where the nature of water can create itself.
Hmm.
So it's a different way of thinking
So when you say
and
resources, like
feeling and internal alignment.
you're saying a lot of people, like, we're just used to thinking of water of, like, "How can I use this?" And it's like, "No, you are here because
Mhm,
of it. You're coming from this."
mhm.
It's a powerful statement. It's
Yeah,
it's a great way to look at it differently. You know what I mean? And even drinking a
yeah,
glass of water
yeah.
like we both are, like, how more nourishing that can feel just with that wisdom. We talk about
And
I
just
know it's
saying thank you as
yeah,
you're drinking it. Just give gratitude every time you drink.
that's
It's
the
a
water
simple thing, but it changes your life,
that's
honestly.
the water wisdom within. So you started talking about it right when you said you had your kids and you grew up skiing, but for you, it's like, how did you're all about water restoration, and we were talking before the
Mhm,
podcast started. You're saying it's so much
right,
more than that, but water
yeah,
restoration at the nucleus, let's say. How did
yeah.
you come to this mission?
So in 1992, I made a career change, which
Mhm,
was pretty daring, um, from being a landscaper, which was very seasonal in a snowy, like I could only really work 6 months out of the year. I needed to find something that could sustain me all year. And I had another dream where I was shown this video store and I was told that this is how I would effect beneficial change on the planet.
hmm,
I was like, okay, here's another one. I got to figure out what this means. And so I just went and said, can I work here? And I was on the hill photographer for skiers. And that moved into getting on a travel show and being the senior production person. I mean, I grew over time working on feature films when they came to the ski, the mountains. Um, and in 1992, I got paid for one of my first jobs, which was to go to Baja and San Ignacio Lagoon specifically,
mhm,
which is one of the three bays on the Pacific side of Baja that are the birthing lagoons for the gray whale.
hmm,
And these were massacre grounds. This is where the whalers back in the whaling days would just park their boats at the entrance of these lagoons and shoot harpoons at every mama whale that's coming in to give birth. Massacre,
hmm,
bloody massacre, right?
hmm,
And when I went there, we were filming the gray whales, and they exhibit friendly behaviors, which the theory is that there was a young gray whale that was released from a marine world down in that area, and they think that she taught the other whales to have contact with humans. But now you go to San Ignacio, and if the whales feel like it, you can't approach them, but they will come up to the boat and they will, in fact, push their babies to the boat so that you can touch them. And this was right at the beginning of this behavior. Now it's gotten more and more pronounced.
yeah,
And we hadn't seen them. We hadn't had any real contact with them for like 2 days. And it was late afternoon. We were deciding whether we were going in or not. And they're speaking Spanish. And there's three pongas in a triangle with their motors running. And I'm kind of in the middle, just letting them talk over me and decide what's happening, playing with the reflections of the water. And I see a whale coming up between the three boats. You have to imagine how big they are.
hmm,
So she's coming up between the three boats. I see her mottled skin. She drops down, she shifts herself. I'm just like, and she comes up and she puts her eyeball in my hand.
jeez.
So
Which is
I
the
now
size of
have
what? Just so we could
a
anyone
softball
listening. My goodness, okay.
and I fall into her eye. There
Hmm,
is such consciousness, such awareness, such connection. I mean, I can't explain that feeling.
hmm,
No one else can explain it to you. It transcended space and time. I have no idea how long my hand was there. But what she did was transmit to me a message that was not from me. I didn't have this thought in my head ever before. And what she said is that we have history, legend, and memory, and we remember the killing times and we forgive you.
hmm,
And we know we must appeal to the heart of humanity for all of our survival. If we go, you all go.
Hmm.
So that's like the opposite of, in a way, the opposite of that first dream.
Hmm.
If we go, you all go. And she put in me a blueprint of, I mean, we talk about downloads, and
Hmm.
like, I don't know what that means, but I got downloaded into, and I'm still unpacking the blueprint that she put into me.
Hmm.
And part of my question was, why me? And her answer was, because you're listening.
So you come out of that first dream, or second dream, I should say, knowing that you're the change, and you have to sit with that. Like you said, you're like, I don't know what I'm going to be the change agent for, and you're
Yeah,
sitting
it
there for
confused
time,
me.
and
I didn't know anything
and
still.
to be able to just sit in, because we talk about getting uncomfortable, you're sitting in that uncomfort of what does this mean until
Yeah.
you meet this whale and get this download, and then, like you said, you're still unpacking it. So for you, I guess, how do you? I don't want to say wrestle because it for you it feels more like a
It's
flow.
dance. It's a
Yeah.
dance. Yeah.
How do you dance with this, I don't wanna say uncomfort or unease of, "I don't have it all yet," and still work towards something? How do you work with that?
The first thing I really had to work on, which I feel like I've gotten in a profound way, that um, again, it's a feeling that you have to feel. You can give words to it, but
Mhm,
it's an internal alignment
mhm,
and trusting that, like hyper radical trust of that process and that message. Like, it came to me. I didn't make it up. It arrived, and it arrived with such power and such potency that I can't do anything but follow it. When I'm not doing one thing each day to further that message, I feel angst and anxiety, which is the angst and anxiety that I had in myself before, when I was living in fear and doubt.
hmm. How do
Right? It's
you
that same thing that comes up. So it's my sanity.
how do you bracket that of, like, "Hey, a connection within all of us, you're the one listening." How do you then attach that
Mm.
to what you're doing with water and
So
water
that's, yeah.
restoration?
So that's where water wisdom comes in, is
Mm,
because there is only one water on earth, and we are all born and nurtured of that water.
mm,
So the covalent hydrogen bond is the common bond of all life. So when you're aligning yourself with water and living as water, not just water, something that comes out of the tap, something I drink, something in my river, something in my ocean, but that I am water and I am the consciousness of water, it changes everything. And um, like the angst, like I'm dealing in climate restoration, right? It's a
mhm,
very angsty space.
mhm,
And there's a huge amount of anxiety, especially with our youth,
mhm,
because we know we have a small window of opportunity to change our behavior. And the complexity of that is mind boggling.
mhm,
And tears us apart if we can't find that radical trust that water regenerates, water revives. So if we can align with the source of life in terms of correcting our own behavior, right? We're in climate crisis because we've disrupted the hydrologic cycle of the planet. Water is calibrating, recalibrating. Water always seeks equilibrium. And so if we can align with that instead of fighting it and trying to keep status quo, like that's what I'm finding in the climate conversation right now, is that they're trying to keep status quo
mm,
and still make money off of it, right? And
mhm,
make it, it's like we have to shift ourselves. And we can still, we need reciprocity. We need to make a living. We need all that. But essentially, it's like the conversation has been dominated by carbon.
mhm,
And yes, we're all carbon, but carbon in this case is doing the damage. Like,
mhm,
that's what's causing the imbalance, but it's not the body that's being damaged.
mhm.
And so it's a different way to look at it and to recognize that we're healing the body in
So it's
healing
almost like,
ourselves.
if you think of this, I'm a big cartoon. I think I already told you, cartoon, animation,
Yeah,
analogy, superhero guy. Instead of basically trying to fight us building up the bad guy, carbon, what's doing the damage, you're saying, hey, we need to be focusing on the good guy or the good lady, the one that's protecting us, which is water itself, which, like you said, is the source of it all. It's almost
right,
seems like a two-prong approach, but we're only focusing on one side.
right.
So,
And carbon is the inanimate, right? It's water that animates.
mm,
When you talk about animations, like I have so many ideas for animation. Water animates life. Water animates carbon. Water animates iron. It's what animates us to become living. Without that, all those minerals are inanimate. And
so,
one last thought to close this. You talked about the 50%. If you're 50%, you're dehydrated and you're about to die.
mhm.
Right? We're more around 75, depending on weight, age, between 65 and 85. That's by volume. That's water by volume in our bodies. If you count the number of molecules in our body, 99% of the number of molecules in our body are water molecules. You can't be 99% of anything without being that.
Hmm.
And so it's just like we have to shift, we have to flip that mirror. We have, in order to come together and deal with the imbalance that we've created in the time that we have, so that we don't lose some degree of status quo, because there's such a thing, as you probably heard of it, cascading systems collapse. That if the Amazon goes, our climate will go. And the Amazon is at the tipping point now and very quickly being surpassed because of the illegal mining, because of the deforestation, because of the destruction of the guardians themselves, who are the indigenous of that region. And if the Amazon collapses, which by far, if you've seen it, there's an animation that shows the biosynthesis on the planet over the year, and the Amazon just goes, right, in terms of how much oxygen it's putting and moisture and life it's putting into our whole system of the planet.
So with all of that, I guess I'm curious, what are some of the
And
things you're
yet
doing
it's all connected.
what are some of the things
Yeah,
you're doing
so
now
in
when and there might
essence,
be a real quick, there might be a small delay. So I just like that could be what you're catching on because
yeah,
you'll cut in and out. Just not I can hear all the audio. It's just seeing you. My question being, what are some of the things you're doing at a water restoration level around the world? You talked about being in Guinea for a while. We talk about the
right,
watershed. What are some of the things that you're doing to bring water restoration to light around the world?
right. It is basically managing the complexity of that. And one of the things that the whale message got me looking for and finding what is a concept that I now called the Watershed Wisdom Council concept. And the idea is community is the unit of global transformation. And if that the individual is too small and even the county is too large, but it's basically the most effective sort of number of people working together is probably between 7 and 14, right? In terms of people that are really able to work together and make something happen. It's
Mhm.
small groups. And those small groups then go out into their community and get their community working on their own watershed. And so creating these small group councils that are then connected. So the tagline I have for this mission is internally aligned, which we spoke about, locally empowered, which is this community group empowerment, bioregionally connected, and globally networked.
Hmm.
And so, what I've been working on for the past probably about 5 years is creating the organizational design model and the framework to manage the complexity of such a interconnected, because every watershed's unique. I can't go to Guinea and tell them what they need. I have to go there and ask them what they need and help them get that and support that. And education is the biggest right now.
Right. So really, it's the education of one organizing these councils, right? But also then it's the education for yourself to know what they
Mhm.
need based on where they're at. Because you keep talking watershed, and this could be my ignorance, and I apologize. For those listening, could you describe
Mhm.
watershed and what you mean by helping create watersheds? Are we just talking about how water flows from rivers to lakes to oceans, or what do you mean when you say watershed?
It's more specific.
Okay.
It's when you think of a valley, right?
Mhm.
From the ridge to the reef.
Mhm.
So it's what water falls within that terrain, which is how water organizes itself. It moves through, it's the flow of the water through that terrain, but it's more than just that terrain, because it's the life within that terrain, because it's the movement of the water inside of our bodies. So we are part of the watershed. It's again that delusion of separation that we have
Mm.
with ourselves, on the world, and with between each other and the planet and nature. It's a delusion. It's not there. We're
Mhm.
all so integral to everything else. And so our watersheds are being dehydrated and they're dying. That's what the forest fires are. That's what the floods are. They're part of that same phenomena where we're dehydrating the earth. It's not sinking into the ground and creating the environment wherein the rain, where we have plants, like we're monocropping our planet, and we need diversity of plants, and plants bring in, not just draw in the water that allows the rain to condense around aerosols and give us that moisture. Without a moist ground, we don't get rain. Without a moist understory, we don't get rain. And so understanding that the watershed technically is just that physical terrain, but it's beyond that. It's the whole system, the
Yeah.
whole interconnected system.
And seeing that we're just as much a part of it as in our bodies and how we,
Correct.
interact with it as the
Right.
water outside of us itself. Now,
Right.
so, like, a concerned citizen, how would, like, someone that listens to this that's like, "This lady's speaking my language. Thank you, Eliza. We need to take care of our water." Like, how would that citizen get involved with
It
I
depends on how passionate they are about it.
Mhm.
If they are ready to
Let's say
focalize a
8 out of
watershed.
10.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that 80/20, right?
Yeah. We'll go 8.2 out of 10.
All right. Somebody focalizes. They decide, I'm ready to do this. They educate themselves. They find out who's doing what in their own community. I have the Water Unity Network, which is the organizational framework that is designed to hold and carry the Watershed Wisdom Council concept. It's an evolution. It's a step by step. We can't just do it all at once. We have a lot of learning to do. We need to connect with each other, and we need that hyper radical trust and hyper radical collaboration. Like, who's doing what where? Okay, how do we work together? There's an amazing woman that I just spoke to in Colorado that is just suddenly connecting every agency together around mycelial remediation, working with mushrooms to
Mhm.
remediate the water. And it's
Shout out
just taking,
mushrooms.
yeah, we go.
Sorry.
That's it. And fungus is the mycelial network, is our neural network of the planet,
Mhm.
right? So it makes sense that if we start talking to it and honoring it and respecting it and working with it as an ally, rather than kill that fungus, it's
Mhm.
ugly,
Mhm.
stinks, right?
Mhm.
It changes everything. And so this relationship between our water and ourselves and the rest of life changes everything.
So you're saying, like, someone out there that is like, they're hearing this and they believe in the power of water. It's like, first thing you should do is like, learn as much as you can And what you're saying is like at a community level, you're saying groups of 7, I think you said 7 to 14, 7 to 16,
Right.
start
Right.
reaching out in your community. Once you can educate yourself, you reach out into your community, then you can figure out what you can do.
Right.
Now, do you have any best resources to point people to if they're like, where's the best place to go to learn
Right.
all I can about water and water restoration?
Well, see, that's one of the challenges is
Uh-huh.
that does not exist,
Got it.
really. I mean, you can find all bits and pieces, but we're in that silo
Mhm.
that everything is here and there. And sure, start gathering it in your own community. But what I'm building the Water Unity Network framework upon is the world water community. And this is actually a platform whereby there's a whole amazing gathering of those people that are the first molecules that I spoke to that are beginning to really operate in a different way with regards to water restoration. And the whole idea, like the regenerative movement, is really rising amazingly quickly with regenerative agriculture. And it's basically how do we regenerate and retain what remains, and then regenerate what we've lost.
Because you actually you brought this up now, and I'm pretty sure I because I was doing research and I saw the words WUN, right? Which I think is what we've been talking about here. You said water something network. What was the
Water Unity Network, the acronym is WUN.
okay, WUN? You said you'd love everyone to commit 1 week to participating in a
Yeah,
WUN water, love, and gratitude practice. This is
yeah.
the last question I have before we get into the uncomfortable questions. It's the last question that I have. What is a water, love, and gratitude practice?
What I said before, you take a drink of water and you say thank you, right? You love your water as if it is the most amazing lover on the planet. Like
Mm,
just love it up. Get beyond, dissolve that delusion of separation and recognize that as you're loving your water, you're loving your life.
hmm,
And that and getting in touch with that water inside of yourself. I have the theory, and I have nothing to prove it, but I imagine that now I'm saying it, the proof is going to show up.
mhm,
That's the way it happens. That we talk about telepathy, and I think telepathy travels on our water
hmm.
because I can't even begin to tell
Really?
you the synchronicities that have happened in my life in the most amazing way since I've made this flip in myself. Completely unexplainable by the logical mind.
Because you had to go through some. I mean, I love listening to this and hearing this. I'm sure not everyone is as receptive
Oh, I got a lot
to
of
you,
eye rolls.
right? Because it does like it can easily be like, oh, okay, I guess, and I even want to eye roll as I'm pretending to be that person, right? For you, because this is gonna now go to anyone that's listening that
Yeah,
also sees the
yeah.
power in water and she can go, whoa, you're kind of the voice that's been in my head that I've been way too nervous to talk, like to vocalize,
Right.
right? For you, why did you? Why have you decided to get outside your comfort zone, to get the eye rolls, to have the people be like, "What the heck is this crazy lady talking about?"
Mhm.
Like, why do you like? Why have you decided to get outside your comfort zone to share this message?
Um, Part of it is growing up as a skier and skiing for as long as I could walk. So being out of my comfort zone is actually my natural state.
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
started film and video in the extreme right at the beginning, like the
Mhm.
person that coined the term extreme skiing,
Mhm.
extreme sports. I was working with him. So I've been in that zone. I've rock climbed, I've skied, I I like that edge. It's something I'm comfortable with, which is part
Mhm.
of the reason is because it connects you like traveling without any money, like all these things I've done. And it's been training to say, all you can say is, what?
Mhm.
I know the truth. It's like
Mhm.
it doesn't affect me. I don't need that external validation to know that what I'm doing is important.
Mhm.
And I try to keep it as pragmatic and practical as possible because all of this is talk unless we can translate it into the actual field projects that's getting the work done.
Yeah. And it almost sounds like too when you say external validation, it's like I don't care about all the people out there. I spend 100% of my time with me, and I know it's right. And leaning into that. Now you have been lucky, jerk, to be able to be in your uncomfort zone since you were a kid. But I guess the last question here is: there are some people out there that have not grown up like that.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
would you want to tell them? Like, what would your words be, your lesson be to someone who is close to getting outside their comfort zone, but they're on that precipice, right? It's
Yeah.
like toe in, toe out. What would you
Okay.
want to tell them?
What's your skill? You don't start on a black diamond your first day skiing.
Hmm.
You start on the beginner slope, and you test yourself, and you try yourself, and you get familiar with your body and how it moves with gravity, and you learn, what ice does and what slush does and what powder does, and you learn what you need to learn to get to where you need to be. And that's okay. That beginner's mind is a wonderful place to be.
Hmm.
And lean into it. Trust yourself and trust it and trust water, and give gratitude and thanks that you get to play in this amazing playground earth, because
Hmm.
that's really what I believe we're meant to do, is not fight and struggle and battle and war. And we're here to play and find delight in being alive. And that's what I would say, is find that joy, find that delight, and go there, because that's what guides us.
I'm going to give you some gratitude and some love for being on
Thank
today.
you.
Eliza,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And for anybody listening, I'm going to give you some of the takeaways that I took from today. We really hope you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, give us a like and give us a comment below. What's the biggest thing you took away? What is the biggest thing you like? What's the biggest thing you don't like? Because even if you don't like things and you comment, you're helping our algorithm. Here's some of the things that I took away from today is we all have a voice, whether we struggle to find it or not. I love in the beginning how you say there's a difference between a way finder and a way shower, right? That is kind of the bridge between just being a thought leader and then a leading voice, and be able to put yourself out there. And when you understand what that passion is, have that hyper radical trust in it to follow it, like you did with these visions that you have in your time with the mother whale. We talked about water specifically. For us, the biggest takeaway for me is to stop looking at water as a resource, but instead start looking at it as a source, and to treat it as such, and to make sure you tell it you love it. We talk about that if you're really into water, become a focal point. Like, be that person in your community. Start doing as much research as you can, and then reach out to find that network as well. Love water like you love your own life, because that's what it is. And I love that. And then know your skill. If you're struggling to get outside the comfort zone, know what your skill is and work with it. Go from the bunny hill to the green, to the blue, to the double black, to backcountry skiing or snowboarding, and have fun with the process, but get started. I'm so grateful to have you on, Eliza. Thank you so much. There's only one last way for us to close it out. Everybody else, make sure you tune in next week where we talk about creativity with Phoebe. We have got to end, though, with a toast. And I say this not only to you, but also the water I'm about to drink. I love you, and I'm grateful for you.
I love you, and I'm grateful.
Eliza, thank you so much for being on the show.
I honor you, Dylan. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Not a problem. You take care.